All sales are final. You know what you guys are? Nothing but a bunch of sleazy con men in red suits.
Hey, what's up, world? Hope you're all doing fantastic. I know I'm doing pretty good. Today's November 1st. Yesterday was Halloween. Good times were had by all. Hopefully the same is true for everybody out there. Even though, of course, I know it's not. You know, some people have good days, some people have bad days. And then we kind of like teeter back and forth on, having good days and bad days. And, sometimes there's like horrible days mixed in there. And sometimes there are fantastic days mixed in there. Anyway, I'm hoping that this video is going to give whoever watches it a fantastic day. Because I think it's going to be a fantastic video. So I'm going to start off by looking at a video from Tony Heller. Actually, I'm not going to start off. We're also going to be finishing off by looking at this video from Tony Heller. Except I'm going to mix something in to this Tony Heller video. So Tony Heller, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty confident I've covered a couple Tony Heller videos on this channel, but I might have covered most of them actually on my previous channel, or my other channel, Vigilance Committee. But anyway, regardless. So Tony Heller, for those of you who don't know, he's like this weather guy. He's like a data scientist. He's like involved in like creating like search engines and stuff like that. He's a really smart guy. He has quite the history behind him. But what he does on YouTube is he sort of debunks the climate narrative. That's what I'll call it. I'll call it the climate narrative. So he does a good job. Let's not even say debunking it, but like combating it, like showing how it's like ripe with fraud. So anyway, the video that we're going to be looking at with him, and by the way, like Tony Heller, to me, he's one of the only YouTubers that I really trust. And it's actually pretty cool. He used to sort of be a Trump supporter, and I'm really happy I don't hear him talk about Trump anymore, and he doesn't really get involved in the false left-right paradigm. And I think it's because he finally, like, realized that, like, it's all bullshit, and that, like, Trump is just as sold out as the rest of them. But anyway, the video that we're going to be looking at of his is this video that he posted a couple of days ago titled, Poisoning the Climate Soup. So he starts this video off with this George Orwell quote. And he actually starts a couple of these videos of his videos off with this quote, and that is, "Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book rewritten. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right." Now, this is where we're going to digress very quickly from this video of Tony Heller's. And I know, it's like, damn, man, we just got into the opening title of the video where he quotes George Orwell. What are you doing? What are you doing? No, let some of the video play. So anyway, so this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, and this, I think, provides a perfect opportunity for this. And you'll see, it's going to tie right back into the whole Tony Heller video. That I've been thinking a lot about the mentality of the masses. And they have this sort of mentality where it's like they want to be in the present all the time. They don't want to think about the past or the future. It actually makes them uncomfortable. Like they seem to like physically recoil from having to like reflect or try to foresee things. Like we'll reflect on things that have already happened or try to like foresee things that, are potentially going to happen. Like it causes them a lot of psychological discomfort, right? And this got me thinking about this book that was pretty popular in my youth, in like my early 20s or late teens and stuff. And it's something that was popular with the previous generation of people. And that is this book titled Be Here Now by this, I believe it's written by Ram Dass, some fake guru guy. Now this book is really interesting. Just like the title suggests, Be Here Now, This book wants its readers to be always in the present. Don't think about the future. Don't think about the past. And it was basically written by a huge influencer or a guy who had a huge influence on the 60s counterculture, or quote-unquote counterculture. So anyway, let's look at a couple pages from this book, right? So this is a particular page. Turn off your mind. Float downstream. Embrace the 10,000 horrible visions and the 10,000 beautiful visions. Embrace life. Embrace it all. Be one with it all. Ram Dass. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it and move with it and join the dance. Conform, basically. That's basically what Alan Watts is saying here. Be a conformist. Okay, there's change going on? No. Turn off your mind. Don't think about the change. No, just jump in with it and dance. Yeah, it's just a dance. It's a fun dance. These guys are scumbags. And these guys are actually scumbags that have shaped like a lot of minds. Inadvertently so. Like not just with people knowing that their minds are being shaped by them. They had a huge influence on Hollywood culture. They had a huge influence on our culture today. And you see like a lot of people have this sort of mentality, this sort of perspective on the world. I mean, it's even sort of what Bruce Lee was espousing. It's like, be like water. If water goes into this container, it becomes the shape of that container. And it was actually a very prevalent message that was going on that like our parents were definitely influenced by. And it's really a huge part of this capitalist dog-eat-dog mentality of like, yeah, just turn off your mind and just go with whatever the masses are going with. But anyway, let's look at a couple more pages, right? You've got to go at the rate you can go. You wake up at the rate you wake up. You're finished with your desires at the rate you finish with your desires. The disequilibrium comes into harmony at the rate it comes into harmony. You can't rip the skin off the snake. The snake must molt the skin. That's the rate it happens. And this book is written like made for children. It's filled with pictures. It's filled with like this writing that sort of plays into the words, which helps the person. But it also has this effect on the person. It has an effect on the reader. And the reader is largely like not even conscious of it. They're not even conscious with the fact that they're being fucking brainwashed. Their brain is being molded. Anyway, let's look at a couple more of these passages. And you'll see that like a lot of these things are kind of philosophies that the mindless masses have. It's like, yeah, don't think about the things that are really happening around you. Like, the disequilibrium, all this chaos going on. Don't worry, it's just going to naturally come into order. This corruption in government, which I believe has been going on since ancient Egypt, like pretty much the same group. Oh yeah, don't worry, it's just going to naturally correct itself. Oh yeah, look, history, just miraculous people will come around and, just save us and course correct. It's like, no, all those people were connected with the club and they're all staged individuals. Okay, just like our Trump character, who's obviously part of the club, obviously serves the club based off of his actions, but people just listen to his words. And that's what, like, history will, like, really put out there and really focus on. And then people, like, 1,000 years from now would be like, oh yeah, man, Trump is totally like an outsider, man. And it's like, no, it's just a shit show. Anyway, let's look at more of this stuff, right? So you can't be in your thoughts anymore because your thoughts are still in time and space, and you can't get out of time through them. You've got to be outside that. You've got to be in the place where you see your own contemplation, birth, childhood, adolescence, maturity, age, and death. Yeah, the cycle of life, man. That's where you got to see it all, man. And not only that, I guess I cut it out here. And not only that one, but that one. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then it's just like some dumb shit. And not only that one, but that one, and that one, and that one too. It's so goofy. Like, and people actually read this shit, and they actually think that they're being enlightened. Like, after reading this, I've seen it happen to people. Like, you don't understand. This shit was really popular in my late teens. And I've seen people who were one way. They had a certain kind of characteristic. I've seen them read this shit and just, like, totally change. And then they think that they're, like, so enlightened and above everything. Like, they've been to the mountaintop. And they're like, no, we're just above all that bickering about government corruption. No, you conspiracy theorists, man, you're just not enlightened. You're just not, you haven't reached the Buddhahood. And they fucking really think that they're like above all of this like worldly squabbles and stuff. And they're like, yeah, man, you gotta be spiritual. You gotta transcend past all of it. And they start talking about this fucking made up place, this spiritual realm that they're going to escape to after death. And it's like, there's possibly, if you're talking about this cycle, right? You don't think reincarnation is going to happen where you're going to reincarnate right back into this shithole? Like, you think you're going to escape from it? Like, oh yeah, I'll go into some heaven or some other place and I'll reincarnate on some other planet. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Our energies are trapped here. We got to solve what we were supposed to solve here. Okay, we should be involved in this shit and not detached from it like some sort of fucking egomaniac. But anyway, I digress. So let's go. Let's see some more excerpts from this. By the way, I'm sorry. This is gonna go somewhere. This is going to go somewhere very profound. So just hold in, strap yourselves in. I know that like we've been trained to have like short attention spans, and we need to go on to the next thing and stuff. But trust me, this is gonna be worth it. I put a lot of time into this. It's gonna be worth it. So if you can stand back far enough and watch the whole process, you would see you are a totally determined being. The very moment you will wake up is totally determined. How long you will sleep is totally determined. What you will hear of what I say is totally determined. There are no accidents in this business at all. Accidents are just from where you're looking. To the ego, it looks like it's miracles and accidents. No miracles, no accidents. It's just your vantage point that you're sort of stuck in. And of course, just total bullshit. And it's hilarious how like sometimes it's like what they say completely will contradict. Like they're like, oh no, I'm not into determinism. But then when you like really investigate and start like critically analyzing, you're like, oh, but they are determinists. Okay. So anyway, interesting, right? So, let's see. What is the point of Be Here Now? As the title suggests, the essence of Be Here Now is that we're missing out on life if we're living in our heads rather than connecting with the immediacy of being alive. And this is exactly like this philosophy. It's like, no, man, you got this, this YOLO. You only live once, man. You're missing out on life by caring about all these things around you. Don't care about the things YOLO, man. People are scumbags. And not only are they scumbags, but they're thoughtless, they're brainless.
Mr. Rico.
Yeah, I'll give you a comment. Their minds are dead.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, their minds are dead.
I think what Mr. Rico.
That's one of my favorite clips. So anyway, let's look at this next thing. Okay, so interesting, like right after this, right, I'm like, I decide to Google. I'm like, because, I never actually Googled this. And I was like, did Ram Dass work for the CIA? And then the first thing I looked at was this Reddit post, which is titled, Who is Richard Alpert? Also known as Ram Dass. And then when I click on this, oh, sorry, this post was deleted by the person who originally posted it. So, yeah, and by the way, this is the rest of the title. After 4 years of listening to him, I've come to question his teachings. Oh, good, that's because you might actually have a working brain in there, but then it looks like all these idiots in the comment section managed to, like, I guess, make him rethink his questions and stuff. I guess they answered his questions even though that they didn't. They were just like, oh man, look, this guy was arrested, and look, they persecuted him, and they made him look like the bad guy, so thus he couldn't have possibly worked with them, right? Oh yeah, of course, because all of that shit couldn't have been like orchestrated for like a media, for publicity, to get the masses to think a certain way. It's all psychological manipulation. It's very simple. The government was seen as a bad thing, as like, after like the, these wars and stuff, people were questioning them. People had like a really pessimistic outlook on stuff, right? So what do? Okay, well, make the person that you don't like attack somebody else, and thus the enemy of your enemy must be your friend. And it's this like psychology, and it's exactly what they did with Trump. Oh, look, nobody trusts the media. People are not trusting the media. They're not trusting the government. Okay, let's have this guy come in. Let's have the media and the government sort of like attack him and trash him, even though he's totally their guy. And then the people are like, oh, man, this guy's totally an outsider, right? It's like, no, man, why don't you just look at his actions? What did he do when he got into office? Okay, that's right. I thought so. So anyway, so then I decided to continue to investigate this, right? So I'm not going to stop at the fucking Reddit post, right? And I see right below it, oh, CIA.gov, really? How the CIA planned the drugging of America. Ooh, very interesting. Let's click on that and see what that's about, right? So you got this article, right? This thing that was declassified, approved for release 2004, 1013. But check this shit out. This shit is not fully released, right? Let's just look at some stuff on this article or on this like declassified thing. This is September 1979, by the way, people. September 1979. They hid this stuff from the people. They're like, oh shit, man, they're exposing our freaking our moles. They're exposing our shills. Let's keep this under wraps. Let's conceal this. And they basically like classified it. They they concealed it from the public until 2004. And then even now that you don't even have the full thing. But let's look at some excerpts from this, all right? So among Bowarts, and Bowarts, by the way, is the author of this article. So How the CIA Planned the Drugging of America by Walter H. Bowart. I should have actually looked into what happened to this guy. I wonder if they killed him. Whatever, I'll look into that later. That would have been an interesting thing to have in this video, but I might include it at the beginning of my next video. So among Bowart's research papers was a CIA memo that directed agents to contact Leary and his partner, Richard Alpert, now Ram Dass, who were then operating as IFIF. The CIA wanted to find out if its own personnel were taking acid with Leary's group, and apparently to determine what IFIF and Leary really knew about the mind-bending properties of LSD, a drug the CIA was then covertly experimenting with. Yeah, covertly experimenting with these guys. So other documents indicated that Leary had received money channeled by the CIA through various government agencies. In all, he received 8 government grants from 1953 to 1958, most of them through the National Institute of Mental Health, now known to have been one of the conduits for research under the MK Ultra program. Okay, so this guy found some really incriminating shit on this guy, Leary. He was another huge acid influencer, and his partner, Richard Albert Ram Dass, right? Now, it's really fucking interesting is that when you Google this article, this thing that was supposedly approved for release, I haven't been able to find a single complete copy of it. I found only 2 links actually linking to the article, both of them fucking CIA.gov links. And the longest one ends at this paragraph. When Bowart found Leary's name among CIA documents in the MK Ultra file, he began writing letters to him in prison. He questioned Leary about his involvement with the CIA. Bowart asked Leary if he had, wittingly or unwittingly, dealt with the CIA during his creation of the psychedelic 60s. From prison, Leary denied ever having anything to do with the CIA. But after he was out of prison, his story changed. I can't really make out what word this is. Oh, yeah, it looks like when Leary called Bowart and later showed up at his door, he said he wanted to explain himself more fully about the letters they'd exchanged. Now, Leary said he, and then the article ends. And that's the longest the fucking article. The other article ends like a couple paragraphs back. Like this other link over here ends a couple paragraphs back. The point is that people can't even comprehend the level of corruption and manipulation that exists in our society. Our society is one of the furthest thing from free that there is, okay? It reminds me, I should have included the new NYPD slogan. It's like protecting the public and fighting criminals. And I see it as the opposite. It's like fighting the public and protecting criminals. That's like actually what they're really doing for the most part. Of course, not all of them. Of course, I'm just generalizing in an almost hyperbolic manner. And of course, I'm just sort of generalizing and sort of being a little I guess there's a little hyperbole there, right? So anyway, that's where that ends. Let's go back to the video now, though. Poisoning the climate soup. And see how they manipulate this narrative. So anyway, Tony Heller basically he looks at past news articles that discuss the climate, and then show how that completely is like what they're saying then is completely counter to the narrative now. So let's check this out, right? So this is July 21st, 1974. the Moines Sunday Register. I guess it's like some old newspaper. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even in circulation anymore, right? So world is getting colder, right? Cooler. So global cooling may be a cause of the devastating African drought, now in its sixth year. Some scientists believe that expansion of the cold polar air caps pushed the monsoon rain, whatever. So they're blaming like the cold for basically the same sort of weather phenomenons that they now blame the heat on. Okay, so the important thing is that they have this chart: a century of global climate changes, 5-year averages in mean surface air temperatures. And basically, it's from 1870 to like 1970. I guess it would be like to this date, 1974. But here's like 1970, and it shows that like there was some heating up in the early part of the 20th century, the 1900s, and then it heated up. You got the Dust Bowl over here, like a lot of like I guess issues going on in the United States, like that brought about like famines and stuff, and then the 1950s it like kind of topped out, and then it cooled a whole bunch, right? That's what the chart they had in 1974 showed. So Tony Heller shows like, well, NASA's chart today completely obliterates that cooling period. Like it looks like they have, well, this was the 40s. I mean, remember, there was heating into the 50s. So Tony Heller actually does this the solid, and in his video, he actually overlays them, right? So this is his overlay. And it shows that like they completely got rid of this cooling period. They give this tiny little bump. No, there was a precipitous cooling period, and we're going to see that being discussed in a moment. Now, another thing that Tony Heller does is he shows another article here from the New York Times. Thursday, January 5th, 1978. An international team of specialists has concluded from 8 indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend of the last 30 years, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So I guess that would be back to the late 1940s. Yeah, like late 1940s, early 1950s, and then cooling from there, basically. In some, but not all cases, the data extend through last winter. They include sea surface temperatures in the North Central Pacific and North Atlantic, air temperatures at the surface and at various elevations, as well as the extent of snow and ice cover at different seasons. So it's not like they just looked at one factor. They looked at multiple factors. They looked at, as they said, 8 indexes. They looked at 8 different factors, basically, right? So in almost all cases, it has been found that the year-to-year variation in climate are far more marked than the long-term trend. The long-term trend often becomes evident only when data from a number of years are displayed. So anyway, so they go on to say data from the southern hemisphere, south of latitude 30 south, are so meager that reliable conclusions are not possible, the report says. The 30th parallel of south latitude passes through South Africa, Chile, southern Australia. The cooling trend seems to extend at least part way into the southern hemisphere, but there have been indications of warming at high southern latitudes. So they say, like, oh, possibly there. But the important thing here is that the data from the southern hemisphere, particularly south of latitude 30 south, are so meager that reliable conclusions are not possible. Anyway, before I go on to the next piece of evidence that Tony Heller makes, which is connected to this statement, I just want to quickly mention what's here. So the various indexes were reported as follows. Average surface air temperatures recorded at 358 stations north of latitude 20 degrees south from 1951 to 1975 have been analyzed by doctors R. Yamamoto and some Japanese of Kyoto University in Japan on regional and season basis. A general cooling is evident with an intensive cooling episode from 1961 to 1964. I believe that is over here. Be right over here. This would be the early 60s. This chart here showed that it actually, it would have. So that's what they're talking about here. It shows on this chart. This is 1974, though. This article is 1978. Actually, I guess after they did even more research into this. Now, going back to this statement over here, that the data is so meager below a certain region that, like, it's not possible to draw conclusions. They're saying this in 1978, right? But Tony Heller points out that this doesn't stop NASA from producing very detailed maps claiming warming in areas that they could not have possibly had long-term data from. This is their map, 1910 to 2023. This is supposed to be their warming. And they have no problem just making up data from this time period that they can't possibly have. They just completely make it up. And Tony Heller shows exactly how they go about making this up. So what he does is he hones in on like such a location in the southern hemisphere that has long-term data. So these are the stations that actually have long-term data. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So he looks at these, I think there's 5 over here, these 4 over here. So let's zoom in. Yeah, it's these 4. And he looks at them and he shows the raw data from them and then the adjusted data. And because data. Okay, so let's look at the data real quick. So this is Buenos Aires. So what he does is he first goes into Buenos Aires, which is a city in South America, and he shows that, yes, look, they have in their raw data, they have a warming trend, but that's because of the urban heat island effect. As it gets more and more developed, it's actually heating at a steady 3 degrees Fahrenheit per century. However, when you look at the other stations that are by it that are not in a city, this is the raw data. So what they do is the following. So this is the raw, then they adjust it. This is the adjusted. Raw, adjusted. So they adjust a warming trend into the data. And they're actually allowed to do this, and there's actually a scientific process with this, but they're doing it fraudulently, and they're doing it irrationally. That's why it's fraudulently. So here's another site here. No warming trend, adjusted. And it even says on their graphs, adjusted average. They adjust them. They put it on their graphs. Measured average, adjusted average. And they like even tell people, oh yeah, like here, this is our data, and it says right at the top, adjusted. But do people see it? Do people pay attention to it? No. Because people don't even pay attention to shit except for their own self. Because they're self-indulgent. They're mindless self-indulgent buffoons. Most of them. I'm not saying everybody is, but it seems like most people have been caught up in that. So the reason that they're allowed to do this is because it's a process called homogenization. A homogeneous thing is like a single group. So homogenization is where you make these different data sets more like a single one of them. You bring them into uniformity. But what they're doing is they're homogenizing the ones that are out in fields and not in cities to match the warming trend of the one in the city. And it's like, yeah, of course you got the warming trend in the city, but that's because this measured data in the city, this has to do with the urban heat island effect. So yes, your measured data, you don't have to adjust this because it's fucking broken already. Like, oh no, they're like, oh, we don't have to break this because it's broken by the urban heat island effect. And if you don't know what that is, just look it up. This is a fucking very well-known fact in science. But somehow they're like, no, we're going to adjust the data of these surrounding stations doing the measurement to match the one that is, of course, going to give us incorrect data. It's insane. But you know what? Just turn off your mind, man. Just float downstream and embrace the 10,000 horrible visions and the 10,000 beautiful visions. Embrace life. Embrace it all. Be one with it all. Frickin' scumbags. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay active. Keep that mind on a grindstone. Keep it very sharp. Okay? Because guess what? These forces never sleep. Our enemies are never sleeping. And thus, we must never sleep. We must not let them disturb our peace, our mind, because that then screws us up. It makes us trip up. It makes us lose focus. It makes us get depressed. Don't fall into that trap. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay active, stay safe.
What did you call us?
You heard me right. Con men, thieves, degenerates, lowlifes, thugs, criminals!